Hello everybody, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today we are returning to Burden of Command, a new-ish turn-based role-playing war game out by the folks at Green... Is it Green Tree Games? It's been so long I forgot. It is Green Tree Games. Yeah, we're playing this game. It is sort of a role-playing company command type game. We've been moving into the Italian campaign, and we have been taking a fair number of casualties. We suffered a few last battle with our defense against a German armored offensive. We kind of defended a ridge against them without adequate resources, but we were able to hold on and survive long enough here. So we'll go ahead and see what the next mission has in store for us. We exited before sort of the post-battle briefing, so this was sort of the end of this battle. We were about to get overrun when the mission ended, so let's see what happens here.
My squad and all through the war, it changed quite a bit. There was no one in it at the end who was in it at the beginning. Either wounds or killed. Our intelligence officer was killed in the first one in Italy. The second one, a Captain Knox, a very fine man, killed by sniper fire. He stepped out in front of he was just looking around, stepped out in front of a tank, and a sniper got him.
Okay, well, I guess that's a fitting comment for us, given that, yeah, we just have been suffering a lot of casualties here, so let's go ahead and jump ahead. The battle continues elsewhere. Major victory. All three objectives held, and casualties were less than 10%. Just barely held on there. I have to say you did a hell of a job out there, Colonel Hentes tells you when you report in. You certainly did better than Fox Company. A pity you couldn't have reinforced them. I'm rotating your company into the battalion reserve so you can get some rest and pick up replacements, he continues. I'll try to rustle up some passes to Naples for your men, too. After what you all accomplished, they damn well deserve them. Yes, sir. Well done, Captain. Dismissed. The next day, the rest of the battalion presses on to the north. Nickel Company stays behind and looks after its own as best as it can, including Private Lawson, who survived but will almost certainly never walk again. You're almost finished when a worried figure pushes his way through to your tent. Excuse me, Ash Dearborn says as he stamps out the butt of a cigarette with his heel and steps inside. Might I have a moment of your time, Captain? I must admit that I have concerns about the way this campaign is being run, Dearborn tells you a few moments later as he settles into a chair. Given our current route, we shall soon encounter the high Apennine Mountains, and I may assure you, having visited them before the war, that the appellation is quite high, quite apt. He leans in, eyes tinged with concern. Imagine, if you will, a series of high flat-topped peaks, one after the other, each surrounded by sheer cliffs and narrow valleys. Now imagine that each of these mountain tops is filled with crags and ravines and dotted with stout houses, old castles, and fortified abbeys. Those are the high Apennines. No German officer worth his boots could fail to defend them. The closer we get, the more distinct my impression is that General Clark has no combat sense. I'm sure the brass knows what it is, what's what? Someone more daring ought to be in charge. Okay. One day it might be us calling the shots. You know, I used to look forward to that day, Dearborn admits, but the more I see of combat or of the reality of it, the more I realize how unready I am. He smiles bitterly. There's an irony to that, isn't there? The more you know, the less you feel qualified. I wonder if General Clark feels the same way. Well, I suppose I ought to stop wasting your time, your subordinate says as he stands and plucks a fresh cigarette from his pocket. There's likely more constructive ways for me to give voice to certain concerns. Thank you for lending an ear. A few days later, word comes back that the lead elements of the 7th have advanced out of range of its supply lines, and the order is given to pack up and move the rear area forward. Your company strikes the tents, buries the latrine pits, and puts out the fires. You march north past the battlefields of the past few days, though the wet miasma of decaying bodies, under a torrent of autumn rain which soaks you to the bone and makes being dry an impossible luxury. Ahead, the snow-capped peaks of the high Apennines loom and offer the prospect of hard days ahead. Okay. So we go to our men. You can see casualties here, combat fatigue. We have 22 loyalty, 21 prestige. We do have 11 replacements, which is probably enough to replace all of our losses here. Experience costs us 3 prestige. How do we reduce this? Combat fatigue. Can I not reduce it at all? I can reduce stress. Cost loyalty. Okay. It can only be reduced by inter-scenario R&R or a narrative event. Great. Well, maybe some of the R&R we're getting now will reduce it. I don't know. All right, replace these units, casualties, because these are fully experienced units. So they're all up to full strength at their 5 stars. And then these guys have 4 casualties who will replace. How much experience? They've got enough that I can do a green replacement without dropping their stars. Same for these guys, actually. Okay, so we were able to replace all of our losses, so our boys are back to full strength after that battle, and we didn't lose any stars worth of experience, so that's good news. We've still got 2 fully maxed out experience units in the first platoon. Our platoon commander suffered a serious wound, and he'll be returning. We have 1 fully experienced unit in our 3rd platoon under Dearborn, and that's about it. Do we have... I can't get more experience. I wish my mortar units had more experience, but because they're not directly in the front lines, seems like they generate a lot less experience. Let's go ahead and reduce combat fatigue for 2 loyalty. I think I can do it for myself too. I don't know what else I'm supposed to do with his loyalty. Oh, I can increase trust earned by spending loyalty on it. I mean, Dearborn's very, very maxed out, but... Okay. Why is he -2? Probably don't want it to be in the negatives. All right. Let's go ahead and continue our journey and see what our next step in the campaign is. Ooh, this is ominous music in the background here. Never a good sign. January 1944. Soft ground. Wasn't that the last battle?
In 1943, it was one of our strategic aims to draw as many German forces as possible away from the Russian front and French coastal areas, and to contain them on the Italian peninsula, while liberating as much of Italy as might be possible with the means at our disposal.
As General Clark was well aware, our objectives were one thing, the achieving of them another.
Okay. General Mark Clark talks about the Allied strategy in Italy from the video beachhead Anzio, courtesy of the Department of Defense. Uh-oh. Anzio. November 1943, Italy. 15th November, 600 hours. You wake to the sound of thunder, German thunder. A constant patter of rain on the canvas above is a counterpoint to the distant artillery furor. The cot creaks beneath you. As you brush the sleep from your eyes, the damp maps on the table are revealed. It has been 30 soaking miles since crossing the Volturno, a torrent of storm-swollen streams and half-flooded roads. The regiment has lost more men from pneumonia and trench foot than Kraut bullets. Now there is Monte la Defensiva. It looms over the company's shallow trenches, the knuckles of a giant stone fist, jutting into the steel-gray sky. On its crest are the Germans and their artillery spotters. Monte la Defensia has to be taken. For the past week, regiment has tried its damnedest. Damnedest was an apt description, and it wasn't good enough. Truckloads of fresh-faced replacements come up the road from Naples every day. The wounded and dead go back down the same way. You catch sight of Colonel Hentias making a little show for the arriving soldiers, despite the rain or because of it. When he sees you, he motions you over with an old wooden cane, a gift from his men, simple, handcrafted Sicilian wood, to give him something to balance while he heals up. How's the leg? Hurts like a son of a bitch, Henkes responds wearily, but not as much as leaving the Krauts on that hill. You can guess how things went. The colonel's recklessness finally caught up with him. Not long after you'd crossed the Volturno, a German mortar put half a dozen steel fragments into his leg and blew a chunk of rock into his back. He has walked with a cane ever since. There's no time for a lengthy hospital stay. You have some work for us? The colonel came by to do some more than chew the fat with a subordinate. There's more wounded up there, he notes. I need one of your platoons to help fetch and carry. Which would be your suggestion? Carrying wounded under fire can be even harder than actually fighting the enemy. Hard to take cover, and you can't return fire while lugging a stretcher. It can take 3 or 4 men to bring one out alive. Maybe they'll get some experience. Take Stern's weapon platoon. They're used to carrying heavy things, right? Trust -5. They take very light casualties. Okay. We couldn't even get close to the poor schmucks, Stern recounted bitterly when he returns. 3 hours later, empty-handed. Every time we got close, the crowd MGs would open up. They usually shot the guy we were trying to grab, too. Colonel Henkes is grim when you report the news to him, and soon becomes clear that it has nothing to do with your failure that morning. Our casualty reports aren't good, Captain. The way things stand, we'll be desperately short-handed on our next attack. You brace yourself for the words you know are coming. I'm rotating Nickel Company back into the line. Your next time we go up La Defensa, you'll go up with us. I hope your men are up for a fight. We'll fight, sir. Good. That's what I want to hear, because you and your company will have a hell of a lot of fighting ahead of you. He fixes you with a look that's half exhaustion and half pity. It'll take a lot more killing and a lot more dying before La Defensa falls. Get your men ready, Captain. You'll need all the time you can get. You brief your platoon leaders to help shake the company out of a month in reserve. Weapons are checked and replacements are requisitioned. Passes are canceled, supplies are tallied, and you order a fresh stack of stationery for the letters you must write to the next of kin of the coming casualties. Then the call comes. Advance? No. Withdraw. Not just your outfit either, but the entire division is headed back to Naples. Rumor has it that the brass are moving up a special commando force to take La Defensa instead. Huh. You can see them the day your unit departs. They pull in on trucks, just as Crossley finishes packing up at your jeep. Men in bulky ski pants and parkas carrying familiar weapons and unfamiliar equipment. Each one wears a red spearhead patch on his shoulder. USA, it says horizontally across the top. Canada, read the letters arranged vertically below. You quietly wish them luck, whoever they are. Monte la Defensa is their problem now. The 7th Infantry Regiment's new billets lie beyond the ancient grandeur of Naples, but the promise of hot showers, hot food, and fresh dry clothes is more than enough to make a collection of wooden huts look like the Promised Land. But that'll have to wait because a tall brunette in an OD service uniform and First Lieutenant's bars stride toward you with a manila folder in hand. Are you the officer in command of Nickel Company, 3rd Battalion, she asks in a businesslike tone after she snaps off a parade ground salute. How can I help you? Hey, look, she's back. Lieutenant Rogers, Woman's Army Corps, she replies crisply. I'm an administrator for the... Oh, wait, they use the same image for... Isn't she the same person who we had that nighttime interview with? Honestly, it's been like over a month. I may misremember. The image looks similar to me. You can help me by letting me help you keep your outfit in one piece, Captain. Is Naples that dangerous? It is for horny soldiers with too much pocket money, Rogers replies bluntly. The war's left thousands of homeless and refugees are pouring in. Most of the are starving and destitute. The men traffic in the black market or take up theft to survive. Most women don't have that option. Rogers tilts her head toward the sprawling city below. Desperate women are selling their virtue, and soldiers like yours, healthy young men who haven't seen a woman in weeks, are buying. And nothing spreads VD like unregulated prostitution. Exactly, Rogers replies. These women can't afford to care if they've got the clap. They'll sell themselves all the same. If your boys go down there unprepared, they may find the price of a good time to be more than they bargained for. The WWII officer purses her lips. We're doing what we can to keep the infestations contained. We've even set up sanctioned bordellos staffed by regularly inspected girls. But we're still losing an entire battalion's worth of men to venereal disease. There's an entire field hospital full of really bad cases down the road if you want to see for yourself. Not really. Rogers flourishes her manila folder. I, for one, would rather prevent than cure. I'm here to deliver a safety brief to your men before they're sent loose on the city. Normally, they'd send a physician, but they're busy dealing with actual cases. Now then, I'm certain you will agree that forewarned is forearmed, and I wouldn't want to see your company walk unwittingly into an ambush. Safety brief it is. Possible trust loss. What is this safety brief of yours? Presentation concerning... yes, I'm sure the men will take this very seriously. Okay. Graphic slides about venereal disease. Gotcha. Sure, whatever. -4 trust. My men are annoyed at me. Okay. The men who'd won passes back to Naples after you'd crossed the Volturno and fought so splendidly are even surlier. They know what the city has to offer, and if there's anything that a tired and grumpy infantry hates more than being lectured, it's being lectured on what they already know. But you are their CO, and even if you won't punish them, the army still might. When you herd your company into the converted warehouse of mess hall an hour later, Lieutenant Rogers is waiting beside a bulky overhead projector that all but overtops a wheeled chair. Venereal diseases are bad. Don't be a dummy. Yeah, I don't know. Something about... I'm trying to remember. What are the rubber jokes? I don't even know. Prophylactics? I don't know about that. Oh, you come back and give me a bunk and give me a hands-on demonstration. Yeah, the idea of a woman leading this presentation seems like maybe not ideal. You know, the men are just going to heckle her. She can handle herself. Until the first slide goes up, and even then you're braced, the image is still startling. Crystallized seepage. Ew. If that doesn't motivate, nothing will. That could have gone worse, Rogers muses as the last of your men file out the door. Hopefully it'll keep some of those boys out of trouble. Or at least away from a needle. Anger kills loyalty, and lack of that can be fatal out here. A messenger from 1st Platoon arrives. Crossley is worried about Lieutenant Camera. Very worried. Okay. Be stranger if someone weren't worried in a war, but you get their meaning. Lieutenant Cameron isn't with his platoon or his platoon sergeant. When you come by, instead you find him 100 yards away, sitting up against the shadow of a ruined house, his sidearm in hand, and a darkness about his eyes. You okay, Iggy? I don't know. A non-standard Colt pistol with a two-tone finish that starts at the barrel and bright light through subtle brown tones to the metal. Where'd you get that pistol? It's familiar. Lieutenant Thompson. Rare piece. Wait, didn't Thompson die? Only 500? It's a collector's item. I've been thinking, Christ, in this army, don't let them catch you. Camera doesn't laugh. He doesn't even smile. I was thinking about all the guys that were in the platoon and now they aren't, he says at last. It's not skill that puts them down. I've seen good and bad men mown down. I thought Thompson got killed. And was Camera even in the company at the time? Anyway. You're not the reason you got killed, but you did get wounded, so... Life or death isn't about one factor. Not in war. Everything goes into the cup. Luck, skill, officers, enemy. Before the dice are tossed, most of the men are looking for 7s or 11 to stay alive. Not snake eyes or boxcars, but those can come up just the same. Probably why most officers prefer cards. At least with those, there's some measure of strategy. Think the Germans will give up if you do? Madonna! Santana! All due respect, boss, Camera says, but this is my little patch of hell. Back home, I knew what I was doing on the factory floor. Frames come in, we put the doors on the same way every time. Trained my replacement before I left, skinny guy, 4F, and hated it. He says he didn't want to be putting Jeeps together, and I don't want to be out here losing guys. I get to know, guys I get to know. No one gets what they want, but there's some jobs you just gotta do. With a little sigh, he shoves his pistol back into its holster. Hey, that was a good conversation. Combat fatigue, -20. With most of the men off in Naples, your workload slackens drastically. For the first time in a long time, you aren't spending long hours preparing for combat on the march in combat or dealing with a myriad of other problems. Between you and Grant and Crosley's stubbornness, the paperwork disappears quickly. By 11, the in pile in your desk is actually empty for a few minutes. For a few minutes, you entertain the concept of free time, until First Sergeant Grant returns from a smoke break, wearing a worried look. God damn it, what do you need now? Cap, you got a minute? We got an issue here. You mean right here? Right now? Crossley asks nervously as he looks to Grant, and then to you. I mean... Just talk. Well, it's, well... Crossley takes a deep breath. I think I might have caught something in Naples. Could I have permission to get it looked at? Guess that safe debrief wasn't as effective as you'd hoped. For something like this, you really should let him go, but if you do, that means you'll end up picking up his workload as well as your own. Go get it checked out. I'm glad the camera's getting the combat fatigue back. Your aide doesn't quite breathe a sigh of relief when you dismiss him. After all, he might still have to clap. You aren't quite pleased either, but especially when you see the stack of extra paperwork you have to take on. The man is gone for nearly 2 days. Understandably, your aide isn't the only guy in the 5th Army worried about VD. Thankfully, he returns with a clean bill of health. It turns out the symptoms were nothing more than a few particularly aggravating mosquito bites. Okay. All's well that ends well, you guess. More problems trickle in over the next few days. Thankfully, your sergeants and platoon leaders usually deal with them, so your involvement is mostly a formality. After a few days of this, you begin to consider taking some time off and letting your subordinates deal with their own problems. Then First Sergeant Grant, once again, pokes his head into your tent, with the now familiar worried eyes in his look. Now what? Grant isn't alone. With him a beefy-looking officer wearing the black and white armband of the military police. Captain, I'm Lieutenant Watterson, the provost reports as he steps forward. I regret to inform you that some of your men have been arrested for involvement in an altercation with several Royal Navy sailors. What happened? Not my business, Watterson replies, but the Limeys are hopping mad. They want your men punished, and they're willing to raise a stink over it if they aren't. A genuine international incident. Just what you needed to round out your day. Let's invite the Brits to dinner. You send off an invitation to the offended British officers and spend the rest of the afternoon throwing together the supplies for a reasonably presentable dinner. Grant somehow finds time to clean a Class A uniform you've barely had a chance to wear. The Brits are standoffish at first, but after 4 bottles of the local vintage, they begin to loosen up. With the help of your platoon leaders, you build enough rapport so that by the end of the night they are satisfied with your assurance that you will punish the offenders in your company as soon as they are released. Hell yeah. I wish we could, RP it and have that conversation. Lose 20 men, reduced by safety brief? What? I must have double-clicked, but apparently I'm guessing we lost 20 men. Okay. $1,000 hours in inspection. Okay. We're manifestly unprepared for an inspection. I've got a lot of trust, though. That's the thing. I've got trust in the bank. Prestige is what I need. But ignore it. Your men have earned their free time. Okay. +3 prestige. I think this is the best turned out company I've seen all day. Sherman rumbles approvingly to you as he finishes looking over your company. Hell yeah, brothers! We're gonna need more go-getters like you. I'm glad to see that they didn't want us to be spit and polish. I wonder if we would have gotten penalized if we cleaned up. Okay. Autumn turns to winter and the incessant rains grow colder. You and your men are issued new equipment, new cold weather uniforms. But the year 1943 isn't the only thing the 7th Infantry Regiment sees off. Colonel Henteges has yet to recover from his wounds and the strain of command isn't helping. In the end, he has to be evacuated. His successor is Major Rawson, a newly promoted former regimental staff officer. Great. Who's all of 25 years old. Dear Lord. As far as you know, he's never seen real combat. He isn't the only one either. Out of all the men who landed with you at Fidelia, a few are left. Theoretically, the 7th is a veteran regiment, but it doesn't always feel like it. The question gets thrown in sharper relief when the 7th is pulled out of its bivouac and sent to a small town called Pozzuoli on the coast. There, the entirety of the 6th Corps and some Brits, waterproof equipment, run along the beaches and reduce mock pillboxes, and in the distance lie hundreds of ships gathering in the Bay of Naples. A constant stream of supply trucks, heavy guns, and tanks pack the roads leading to the city. Whatever's planned for your men is going to be big, risky, and amphibious. We're probably going to partake in Anzio, right? 2 weeks into January, the entire Corps commences a full-dress landing rehearsal. It's a disaster. Barely a quarter of the landing ships make it to the starting line on time, nobody makes it to the right beach on time, and the Navy somehow manages to dump nearly 24 of your division's precious field guns into the ocean. Yet, the orders from on high don't change. The main event is planned for January 22nd. That evening, sodden and defeated, you and your company eat in silence. Everybody knows what's coming. An invasion with a new battalion commander, a train wreck of a plan, and only 7 days before the ramp drops. Hell, you've barely been able to study the recently arrived maps. Hey, Frank, you hear Patterson ask from just one table over. Can I ask you something? Sure thing, Johnny. You hear Morris answer. What is it? Where the fuck is Anzio?
Well, in other words, through Italy, we got up to Monte Cassino. At Monte Cassino, they pulled us off the line. We took a little bit of invasion, more or less, practice on the boats, and then we got on the boats and went to Anzio.
Anzio, great. I'm sure nothing bad will happen here. 22nd January 1944, midnight. This will be our 3rd landing, by the way, right? Or is it our 4th? I'm trying to remember. We landed on Sicily. We landed in Italy. We landed in North Africa. Jeez, this is 1, 2, 3, 4th landing coming up.
Surprise landing behind enemy lines. We'd seen that in Sicily and so did the Germans.
What the fuck is that noise? 22nd January 1944, midnight, amid the Tyrian Sea. The deck of the landing craft heaves up and down, and as it has ever since the fleet left Naples. This will be the third time this war the Cottonbalers land on a hostile beach. Third? North Africa, Sicily. Oh, did we just cross? Did we just get? We must not have landed on a hostile beach in southern Italy. We just got dropped off. Anyway, just like back in Sicily, you're going to outflank the Germans by storming in like Vikings from the sea. From somewhere in the back, you hear the obnoxious braying of a donkey. I do not hear any donkey. For the veterans of Nickel Company, this is just another Saturday in the Army. Even Private Roberts knows to find a place out of the wind in order to light a cigarette and keep warm. Replacements crowd around him as he asks what the fighting was like way back in Morocco. It wasn't an easy ride. The boats were cracking apart like old wood, Roberts says after taking his drag on the cigarette. He silences the rising questions with a firm hand. And it was dark, really dark, thicker than this, worse even than that rehearsal we had last Tuesday. Not even a sliver of moon, just the stars and sea. Could have kissed that coxswain for bringing us through the reefs safe, if not exactly dry. We rushed ashore, at least some did. I got rescued from drowning by the kind colonel, and it was a heck of a way to get into the war. Roberts catches your eye for a moment at the back of the group. There was a lot of fighting. We nabbed a heap of Germans in Fidelia, and when we got to the Cape, oh, hello there. Oh, hello there, Captain, Robert says as he comes to attention. As he does so, he keeps a tight grip on the lighter and a dinged yet polished thing that he always is borrowing from Crosley. They have active standing jars the replacements to their feet. Naturally, you motion for them to stand at ease. Most of these new men are apprehensive because they've never seen combat. Some of your veterans are apprehensive because they've seen more than enough. Though the company is trained together, they've never fought together, and only half remains worryingly quiet while the other half is still talking about Naples. They don't need a speech. Maybe trade a few words with the veterans. You head over to a knot of veterans, Crosley saying something about Mount Vesuvius blowing black smoke like a chimney and how he took a girl out to the picnic by the bivouac area. The men ask what you did in Naples, and you tell them the truth, which isn't all that interesting. Garrison life never is. The landing craft commences a noticeable turn, and its engines rumble to full power. Word is passed down, and the turn toward the landing beach begins. Your men take their place. The few dim red lamps around are snuffed out and leaving the night utterly dark. Then the clouds part. Starlight spills from the inky heavens, tracing the invasion fleet and oncoming shorelines in ghostly silhouette. Someone forgot the arty, Patterson asks. Usually by now there's a lot of great big kabooms. Ain't you heard, Patterson? Morris says as he strains to see over the prow. Everything's rationed these days. You half expect the Germans to open up after that quip. Instead, a barrage of rockets rises from one of the British ships into the distance. The rocket flares up, lights up the night, and shrieks toward the beach like falling stars. But afterwards, only the rumble of the ship's engines fills the night. The Navy does its duty, the prow touches the shore, the bow ramp drops, and your men splash through the surf and race onto the beach. There's the usual frenetic advance, the desire for cover driven by the fear of an unfriendly round fired in the dark, but all stays quiet but for the muffled thump of boots on sand, and the perimeter firms up. It becomes clear that X-Ray Beach is utterly undefended, or nearly so. Dark lumbering shapes approach. You recognize Corporal Crosley. His bar is pointed at the back of two wide-eyed German soldiers. Behind them come Crosley's squad mates, one carrying a metal box that has to be a radio, given that the man next to him hefts an antenna. Prisoners, Captain Crosley says, as he presents the Germans. I bet Battalion will want to hear what they have to say if the Krauts are fresh squeezed. Do we have time for that? Sergeant Grant asks quietly, unwilling to deflate his efforts openly. Risk, trust, and prestige. Put a guard on him and skip the scene. Sure. Send him to battalion. There's a glow in the east, and the sun is coming up over the Albano Hills. There's a millennia-old sanctuary to Jupiter somewhere among those hills, Dearborn says. His lips curl into a smile. They say it's a place of poets and philosophers. If we move swiftly, we may be there before dark. Good observation position. You can see everything from up there. Word arrives from battalion. Advance and secure the beachhead. No word about those hills, though. No doubt they'll come next. 6 days later, the Albano Hills still lie in the distance. The combined British and American forces now occupy 7 square miles of territory. 7 square miles packed with men, vehicles, and artillery, and mountains of supplies. The Germans hold the rest. The coffin of an engine turns you from the first hint of your 6th dawn at Anzio. The vehicle careens around artillery craters, fresh from the last sunset. The Krauts aren't afraid of firing at targets of opportunity either, and there's no opportunity quite like a vehicle in the open. So we passed up the easy landing and just didn't pursue inland. Good job, guys. I know that. I mean, that's what happened at Anzio. Nearly disaster. Well, I mean, it was disastrously. Tens of thousands of casualties, unnecessarily lost, but... The vehicle turns out to be a command car, funny-looking thing with canvas tarp over the back like an accidentally backed into a mess hall tent. But it's occupied by Major Rawson, and he wastes no time in opening the door before the vehicle's even halted. Rawson hops out on the moment the vehicle halts behind a white-walled house. Hardly the old man, some affably refer to him as. After all, 26 isn't old for a major. We need to hurry, Captain, before things get hot. Division's preparing for a field order. The breakout is a go. Finally, sir. Yes, Rawson says. The plan for the advance from Anzio has developed considerably. The division will attack toward Cisterna and the Vitellary Gap on the 30th. That much has been fixed. The rest is still coming together, likely with a third of the 15th on your right, most of the 7th on your left. Likely starting with item company, but that's all preliminary. Rawson motions for you to follow him to the back of the command car. An orderly raises the canvas and reveals somewhat ruffled Captain Boston, still sitting and gripping the sides of the vehicle with both hands. Okay. The maps that Rawson sets out are dog-eared and mud-splattered. Prior plans spilled across the paper showing unit deployments and enemy dispositions for the past 6 days. Rawson had been the regimental operations chief, the S3 before taking over battalion, and it shows. We'll be working together again, Captain Boston says to you while Rawson works on an overlay. I told them I couldn't do this without Nickel Company. All right, is he the Rangers we worked with before Boston? I can't remember. All right. Okay. The objective for day 1 is Cisterna. The Rangers will infiltrate toward the town. The 7th will follow along to the left. Company follows directly behind the Rangers with item company on your left flank and 3rd Battalion infantry on your right. As you consider the problems of frontage, but sequence will work. There's a good-sized ditch that parallels the road. Okay. The town lets us into the Albana Hills, and if we take the hills, we can cut off the Germans still fighting our boys in the mountains. We do that, we can bag the Hun, and then move on Rome. Here, so you can see the objective is to seize the towns, or the town and the objective is the crossroads, and the other objective from the men's point of view is suffer no more than moderate casualties. So first things first, we're going to get our smoke barrage from our artillery, and I think that will shape where the advance goes, because the hexes that are hit by smoke are usually fairly similar, but not always. I've seen gaps in the smoke. I've seen different patterns of smoke, and so depending on where the smoke lands, that may influence our strategy of advance across the map. I really need some smoke right here on this edge of this. Oh. All right, so there's a clear line of sight up the road, which is less concerning because I'm not going to advance up the road. But to the right of the fence line here, there is a clear line of sight, which is a little bit of a concern for me. The good news is on the right flank, we got a pretty good bank of smoke here, so most of the enemy units that are presumably still behind this trench line here are, covered up. Meanwhile, in the center left, any enemy troops in these trenches or these trenches here are well covered up by multiple hexes worth of smoke. Left flank, a little bit more open. As you can see here, the objective is to take the crossroads across this main road here in front of the town. Those are the secondary objectives. There are 3 of those locations. And then there is also the objective of taking the railhead at the top of the map on the far left. And then your primary objective is to take the town of Cisterna. Now, we have played this battle before live, like I said the other day. And so we know this is unlikely. I don't know if you can take the town. I think there's like 3 or 4 tanks back here. I think there's like a Stug in the town. I'm assuming there's a fair amount of infantry in the town. I don't know how feasible it is to take the town, but we will see. Now, we do have sort of our initial layout of troops. We've got Dearborn on the left flank. I think we will send him up the left way toward this townhouse and then advancing along the roadway here up in this general direction, because his ultimate goal is to take this objective and then maybe the railhead. We also will have our heavy weapons sections under Stern. We'll stay toward the middle of the map. We know there's a large number of Germans in the center of the map here. I'd like to use my MGs to pin them down, maybe use some artillery to pin them down and keep them in place. And then on the right flank, I think we'll keep Rao a little bit further to the right, moving up the roadway. I think based on the line of sight here, when we do get our armor support, we can actually move our armor a good deal of the way up the map toward this objective without too much risk. So when we get our 2 tanks, I think what we'll do is we'll peel 1 tank off to go down this side street to kind of help clear the center of the map, and we will send 1 tank north toward this objective, and maybe even push further north toward the town, although again, we got to be careful because there are a large number of enemy vehicles in that area. And then I'm not totally sure what we're going to do with camera. Part of me says send Camera's boys hard left to support Dearborn, and then we can advance up the map, take these 2 objectives with them, and then hook east back toward the town, because again, the large concentration of German troops makes taking the center crossroads really difficult. If Rao can take the right flank and Camera and Dearborn can take the left flank, we can get 3 objectives. We can feasibly get 3 objectives that way. That seems like maybe a good idea, because a major defeat is 2 objectives or less, under 2 objectives. If we get 3, I think that gets us to at least a draw. And then who knows, maybe we can swing across the rear of the map toward the town, although that's a lot of open ground to cover. I don't really know. We will see. But I do think that Dearborn may need some more support than just his platoon to clear all these buildings. He will also be exposed from the flank from the troops in the center, which is why I'm kind of inclined to keep Camera in the middle as well to try and overrun those troops. There's a lot of German troops in the center of this particular map. But we will see how this unfolds. Meanwhile, ready to go. Thank you very much for the bits. Appreciate the support. Also to all the subscribers who continue to subscribe to this channel, despite the fact that my content has been very intermittent lately. I do appreciate that continued support. It really does mean a lot. First things first, though. Dearborn, you're going to go left. So you've got 2 squads that are kind of green, or they have 1 or 2 stars of experience, but they're not considered veterans yet. So they don't have as many movement points. We are going to go ahead and have you bolster each of them so they can move a little bit further. It does mean you've got to move LT around a bit more, but we're going to go ahead and do that. It will use up... Well, you're going to have to use 1 of the captain's movement points to keep everybody moving, because we won't have enough to activate all of your units. But that's okay, because I don't have anything... Whoa.
That tree there.
No reconnaissance casualties? What? Oh, so we did ask for recon, and apparently we got a lot of good information. Wow! All right, we've got an enemy here, 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 here. Oh my god, they are strong across the center. So that recon confirmed that. Also, likely enemies on the left flank. Do we know anything else? Is that it? Is that all of our recon? Okay. So I do think keeping Rao far to the right, using the heavy weapons to try and pin the guys across the center, and then maybe also Camera's boys. So maybe actually what I'll do here is we'll send Dearborn way off to the left. we will send camera kind of center left. So we're going to send him sort of over here away from the crossroads to try and pin the troops here and sort of hold this left flank, maybe provide some support against these troops. And then we will send Rao way off to the right using this smoke as cover against these boys. And maybe he will flank and destroy these guys in turn. But that's kind of crossing toward the center, but not sending anyone directly up the center of the map. To me, maybe that seems reasonable, I guess. So we'll go ahead and move Dearborn's squad again. Yeah, you're going to need support. Got it. He moved both of those. So we're going to go ahead and use the captain's movement points to activate these additional platoon or squads under Dearborn because we don't have enough movement points for Dearborn with all the bolstering he did. Good news is this squad got a lot of hexes covered by their, despite their inexperience because of the bolster that Dearborn did. And then we'll go ahead and use a second point here from our captain, Butcher, to get our veteran squad under Dearborn moving. These guys will hold the right flank of Dearborn's advance, I think. Well, they didn't move much further than they could have. Also, one other thing I need to do a better job of is rotating units to prevent being flanked. You can rotate without using a point of orders. I did lose Anzio. Well, did I lose Anzio? I don't know if there's losing or winning in these battles, Jose. My character was killed in the previous version of the fight for Anzio. So I was, I guess, dying is defeat, I suppose. If you want to say it, it's death. Death means you lose. But, you know, whatever. It is what it is. All right. Let's win this first round. Okay. Just waiting on the Germans here. Sorry for that sigh. That had nothing to do with the game. All right, we're going to move Rao up the far right flank, I think. You have to be careful with that right unit. One hex of smoke is not necessarily going to prevent them from shooting at me. So we'll move this squad up this way. Bolster these boys. Oh, come on. All right, so I hate to do this, guys, but my son decided just 10 minutes into the stream that it is time to wake up and ask for food. So, being the good father that I am, I will go ahead and go feed him. If he does get back down quickly, I will come back and resume the stream, but it will probably be a little bit before we do that. So, let's go off wide to the right here to avoid the immediate conflict with the enemy. But yeah, so that is the situation. I'm going to have to go ahead and step away, stop the stream for a little bit. And if we come back, we come back. And if we don't, then I'll post this as a VOD later. So I'm back. We are playing Burden of Command. My child hopefully is back asleep after being fed. And we will resume still on turn one. So Rao has done his thing. Lieutenant Rao has moved up on the right flank. He has gotten 3 squads moved forward without anyone taking any fire. So that's a good thing, I think. The right flank squad is in line of sight for these guys, but at least the enemy didn't shoot at them, so that's good. And the other 2 are further back. So we've moved him. We've moved Dearborn. And let's move forward to the next platoon. Okay. As we wait for the enemy. Hopefully the game didn't freeze. All right, here we go. All right, so we've got 2 weapons platoons or squads. I want to move forward here, the MGs. I want to see... All right, so he can provide fire from this trench. Or this trench, too. Okay. So move forward the second squad here. Too far. All right. because we're going to need supporting fire, I think on the right flank first. Oh, God damn it. I didn't mean to do that. I didn't mean to move the mortars into the crossroads. Sometimes it's, this game still is like, you gotta be very clear about what you're intending to move. Alright, he can get to here. That's good. Used one of the captain's points, but that's fine. That's where we wanted to. We're using those points early this turn because I really can't. I mean, I guess now that I move the mortars, I can't do anything with them anyway. But we're going to use these activation points from our company commander to make sure that everybody is moving. Also, let's rotate you. All right, so what line of sight are you at? If there's enemy MGs out here, then they can... Oh, I don't think they can hit you from that far away. You can't see that far in any event, apparently, so... Should still be relatively safe there. Alright, Captain Butcher has 2 points left, and we got one more platoon to move. Okay. Camera, you're going to bolster. I'm going to move your platoon to the left of this road. Enthused.
Let's wait in.
Okay. All right. Let's move you here. Maybe we'll keep one squad to the right of the crossroads. And just move 2 to the left? I don't know. It's probably smarter to keep the entire platoon close together, but I don't particularly love the idea of abandoning this, initial setup either. I also ended up spending way more movement points getting around this mortar. Moving that mortar team into the crossroads is costly there. Okay. Third squad is going to be the last movement point for Butcher. Camera's going to have to catch up next turn. So the entire platoon moved to the left flank here. And the logic is, we saw from that recon earlier, there's a lot of enemy troops to the left, there's a few to the right, but there's more troops that we've identified on the left flank here. And if my goal is to push up to the left and take this crossroad, the crossroads and the railhead, maybe we'll push through the center here to get this crossroads here, although we know there's some armor back here. There's more cover, there's more to do, there's more trenches to move through, there's more freedom of movement on the left flank. Now again, the primary objective is the town, so this may be a little bit of gaming for moving these units to the right, but we know we'll also get armor on the right flank too, so we know we'll get more support there, and yeah, so that's my thought process. If we overwhelm the left, then we can probably use these trenches as sort of an avenue of advance into the town from the flank. Or we can even push from this crossroads directly through to this barn and up toward the front that way as well. So the point is, if I want to drive up and take these 2 objectives on the left, I need something to pin this enemy force here in their positions while we go past their flank. I can use the armor on the right flank to help with that. I can use the additional infantry on the left flank. And I can't move the armor easily to the left because the ground is wet, so it is difficult to move cross-country with the tanks, and roads seem like death traps. That's my logic anyway. Anyway, that's the end of turn 1. We will jump forward here. I don't have any other movement points, so we're just going to go ahead and move forward to turn number 2. I believe turn 2 we get some arty. Artillery calling! Artillery connection secure. 2 guns report ready for your command, Captain. Sparks calls over from where he and the forward observer have positioned themselves beside the radio. The big guns are certainly welcome, but a lack of armor makes them less of a combined arms offensive than a World War I slog. All right, so the guns appear on map too, which I'm not sure why. I don't know, like what truck rolled them up and got them ready, but whatever. All right, so smoke's still here. We've still got recon on these enemy troops. I don't think Stern can drop Artie from where he's at. Can he see the bad guys? Ooh, he can drop Artie on these guys. So let's go ahead and drop Artie on the enemy troops that we can spot. Okay. So I guess Stearns is moving first. Do we suppress him? Yeah, we got some suppression there. Let's use the mortar here as a second drop. They get an undaunted, so they don't get suppressed further. We could continue to try and reduce them or work on the right move and work on the right flank company. I don't think my MG can reach these guys, so I think we're going to have to move this forward a little bit. Move one of Stern's, use one of Stern's movement points. And then let's go ahead and maybe I can't move him and then still drop Artie. Can these guys shoot from where they're at to here? That's my problem, is what do I do with the troops that can yeah. Because I could drop smoke over here to try and shield them a bit as they advance. Yeah, let's do that. It'll shield Rao's 2 platoon or companies on the left here a bit more. Maybe they can advance to this fence line without getting engaged. These guys being partially suppressed should help in that regard. The heavy weapons squad that moved over on the left, we could move them with support from the captain, but we'll wait for the moment because I can do that at any point. So let's end Stern's movement phase. Okay. Risk of exposed fire. What are they doing? Alright, so an officer must have moved over here to rally the troops that we suppressed a bit. Because they're back to green. We don't have any artillery left. I'm curious what you can see from here, though. Do I have a good line of sight from this? No. No, I don't. Okay. Alright, Rao. Bolster the lead squad here.
We will finish this.
Then drop Rao off behind. And then advance this way into the smoke. That way you're behind at least 2 layers of smoke. So hopefully it's less likely you get shot at.
Gonna take a lot of rounds.
Good. Good. Very good. All right, so they got up close to the enemy, and now they're going to go ahead and creep forward here. Use 2 movement points to creep. That makes it much less likely you get shot at. So they have gotten all the way to within 2 hexes of this enemy unit without being injured. Meanwhile, 3rd squad's going to move up toward where Rao is now. I kept Rao in place for the specific reason that now I can go ahead and have him bolster these guys. And then he can move with them for their 2nd point. I think we'll move these guys to the left of that first squad that was moving. Hopefully we don't get engaged. But if they do get engaged, at least we got the officer with them. They don't get engaged. Very good. So now I'll go ahead and take charge over here and try to avoid the enemy fire. Okay, so they're still hidden from the enemy. They go ahead and creep into position here. They may get shot at in the German phase at some point. They are visible now. But it did creep them into position, so at least there wasn't a react fire. Now they're stationary and hunkered down, which I think will make an initial enemy shot at them potentially less damaging. We will see. In any event, Rao has gotten almost his entire platoon up to this fence line just across from where the Germans are. That'll do it for Rao's phase. Let's go ahead and move forward to the next one and see what that has in store for us. Okay, so I think we will do Dearborn next and move on the far flank. Go ahead and bolster here. Move forward here and bolster the second unit. Right, first squad without him will move parallel through these trenches. And then I think he'll actually advance across the crossroads into this cover, and they can use this house and this cover to the left flank of the road. Uh-oh.
Hello, Cottonbalers.
Who shot at them? Was that like a sniper? I didn't hear anything. They're back into cover, but I'm not quite clear what happened. I didn't see artillery fire. Now they're also somewhat suppressed, which is not ideal.
We cannot afford delays.
What? Corporal Sabowski's dutifully at his radio holds up his hand to shush your headquarters unit. Even the distant Germans seem to comply. Sabowski asks, there's a report of a man ducking with a duck in a house. What? One of us is fighting, holding a duck inside the house. Medics and half a squad are with him. Someone call the Germans and stop the war for a bit. Possible stress, trust, and prestige change. Let's figure it out. The little Italian farmhouse is a wreck waiting to happen. Half of the roof is caved in and all the windows are blown out with just a few shutters left, swinging ruined hinges. There's now an open question as to whether the door had ever been attached at all. Above the distant thump of artillery, you hear numerous voices imploring, nay, pleading with someone who is adamant refusal to cooperate is an iron spike in anyone's wheels. A pair of soldiers, privates, linger in a nearby ditch. The larger of the pair has a backpack radio at his feet. There's no sign of a corporal or a sergeant. Okay, what's important here? We need to be quick about this, Captain, First Sergeant Grant says as you hurry forward. The distant din of battle is a constant, then a loud piercing quack makes you both turn toward the black. Why, I'm not over here. That's one of the things with some of the storytelling here is a little strange. It's like my character is nowhere near this. This would be Dearborn, not me. But okay. Now that there's a duck involved, I can't back down. Negative 10 combat fatigue. Yeah, I'll take that. He lets out a sigh. You step inside the house and find the expected destruction, ruined tiles, scorched timbers, and shattered glass, but in the front corner, near the heap of somber clothing, is a half-naked soldier clutching a bundle of feathers, a duck, to his chest. Medics ring the man. The duck doesn't seem to like that, and there's a lot of fight in both of them. As you draw closer, the duck holding the man's state becomes apparent. Dark smudges cover his skin, and dried blood clings to shallow slashes in the skin where the fragments whisked by. Bruises have begun to darken where the concussion of a shell must have battered him, stripping him nearly naked and more. The man looks to you at last, his eyes widening in hope. A captain! Thank God for its part, the duck quacks. The other men draw back and glance toward you. The medics are from the 157th Infantry, a part of the 45th Division. Okay, you're sometimes neighbor. Morphine, litter, everybody back to the war. +1 prestige, +10 trust. Sure. Let's just end. I don't. That gives me +1 prestige and +10 trust. Trust is good. We'll do that. Okay. All right. Whatever the fuck that was. Didn't cost me any of my points there. So that's good, I suppose. Okay. I'm advancing toward the second house with this squad of veterans. Kind of on an oblique here.
This is bad.
What's bad? No one shot at you. I don't understand what's bad. No one shot at you. All right, move into cover. Okay. All right. That'll do it for Dearborn Squad. I'll probably need to use Dearborn to try and get one of those squads that took that suppression back to full strength next turn. All right, camera across the road to join this squad. These guys are suppressed. They got smoke on them, but I'm worried they won't. Let's move a little bit further away from the crossroads so we're not as likely to eat fire. We're moving through heavy smoke, so I'm hoping they're in cover there. We'll kind of move left here a bit through the smoke. We know there's bad guys to the right, so there's a possibility they'll shoot at us from there, so we'll reface. All right, and these guys are veterans, so I'll keep camera with them and moving. Okay. Pretty much does it. We'll go ahead and move the heavy weapons group as well. Use one of our movement points from our captain. And we'll also send the captain forward now. We've got 3 movement points to keep him in the fight. And the next turn he can use a point to bolster that MG and help move him forward too. I'm assuming the enemy can't hit us from here. Doesn't look like it. Alright, that'll end that turn. Hey Hauser, how you doing? Okay, so the enemy was going to shoot at our boys here, but our boys actually shot first. We got a reaction fire first. We took some stress, it looks like there. Maybe some suppression. We're in the open, they're not. Looks like they were the enemy was undaunted, so they didn't take any hits. But 2 Shermans have arrived. Yeah! The tanks are covered in mud. The ground is very soft. Before the battle, it did say, like, hey, you've got to go ahead and keep these things on the road, so we will keep them on the road. And we will move the tanks first. So, they've been spotted by the enemy. think they can be engaged. They can engage the enemy down the trench line and flank him from that position. So turn and fire, boys.
Can't see.
Nice. Looks like they suppressed him. I didn't have any artillery in line of sight of those enemy troops there, so I think using that armor to do that was smart. We'll get the other tank up. So they successfully suppressed that first enemy squad they're dealing with. I don't like any of these points. They can't really hit that enemy at the crossroads from here, so I suppose we'll just see if we can. We've only got one more movement point, so we can either fire now or not. Alright, let's just make sure there's no Germans in that adjacent hex before we presumably charge at the enemy. That was sort of a recon by fire order. So we'll end the tank turn. Smoke's starting to dissipate here, especially on the right flank. There was a lot more in the center, so it's a little bit thicker there still. Can they not shoot? Huh. Okay. Alright, call already in here. Undaunted, hey? Listen, if we're not going to be able to daunt them with artillery fire, can we protect their flank and drop more smoke? Cover them from enemy troops perhaps approaching? Drop mortars on them. Again, undaunted. We know they have an officer with them because they were rallied last turn or something to that effect, but where can my MGs find these guys? Alright, so none of these are really great spots. Stearns uses last movement point to move those MGs further forward. That does it for the heavy weapons section. Okay. Rao is going to try and assault the enemy on the right flank. Hopefully, maybe this enemy unit encased in smoke will prevent him from being able to see very well. Let's creep. So they weren't actually suppressed all that bad.
You are Cottonbalers!
Yes, we are Cottonbalers. I don't know that we need to suppress them at all because they're already suppressed. So let's just charge them.
Keep up! Let's get it done! Cottonbalers, it's me!
Okay. The enemy squad surrenders. We overrun their position. Very good. Ah! Machine gun fire from the flank. Took a lot of suppression there. No casualties, but a lot of stress. So let's rotate these boys so that they aren't flanked by the enemy anymore. And then it looks like we should be secure to push forward with these guys here. So they've got that smoke in the roadway covering them. I don't know if the enemy will react fire on them. They don't have enough to... Yeah. Right in the flank. 12 stress. Or suppression or whatever. So they are heavily suppressed now. Rao's going to have to get them moving if we want to keep them advancing up the roadway on the right. But we didn't take any casualties at least. I know our boys can all face the enemy. Okay. All right, we got the tanks there should also be able to help tamp those MGs down. I don't think they'll have another movement point because they fired twice, so they shouldn't be able to fire again this turn. Okay, we need to advance with cameras, boys. What's going on? Someone's bolstering someone. Bolstering the infantry there who had been partially suppressed. We didn't take any stress damage there, and we engaged in a little bit of a firefight across the trench line. Largely inconsequential. All right, camera. Our boys need to advance. Captain Butcher, you're going to go ahead and bolster that MG unit so it can move further under your direction.
Let's get that barrel going! Stick close!
Alright, can they fire from here? What's their line of sight going to look like? They might be able to suppress that crossroads. Nope. They'll have to advance one more hex. Okay. I can't press them because MGs take 2 hexes. They take 2 action points to move.
We're trained for this.
You guys advance through what's left of the smoke here. These guys on the right have all fired, so I feel a little safer trying to sneak around here. Sneak into position behind what smoke there still is. But the troops in front of us, we know there's bad guys here too, so they could certainly engage us. I think to that end, I'll stack up behind them here. Can we crawl twice or just once? We can creep twice. Nice. So veteran units with their 4 experience or whatever can go ahead and, or action points can actually creep twice. Nice. So they got into that trench line. And that'll do it for cameras, boys, this turn. Okay, then we've just got Dearborns. Boys. Move into cover. I'm going to hold them in place there for now. I'm going to move Dearborn across. Hopefully he doesn't get shot by whoever shot at these guys when they advanced before. Apparently he does not. We want to rally or bolster will get them to move up into that brush. He's got one more movement point. Let's just bolster. We can rally next turn. Or maybe that's all they needed. Alright, advance. Oh, only Dearborn can move there. Sure. I wanted to advance Dearborn into the house because there's cover there, but I guess it's better to keep him. Well, now he won't be with the unit, so I should have done that to begin with. Damn it. Oh well. Alright, so they're in cover on the left side of the road. Alright, let's actually advance these guys here. And then we can try and creep into position here, although we know there's probably bad guys here. So maybe we hold in place here, because they can creep and then fire next turn. But if we creep now, they may get react fired on before we're ready, before the rest of this platoon is up. So let's hold off on that. Meanwhile, Monolith, thank you very much for the resub. Appreciate it. Okay, so we'll see. This should be the end of this third turn, and we'll move forward to turn 4 here in a moment. I don't have any other things to do with my captain. We'll keep his point. I wish I could preemptively bolster, but... Alright, everyone, that's going to do it for today's episode of Burden of Command, the turn-based war game / role-playing game. We've been playing it for a bit on the channel. It's been a little while since our last episode, and this is a long battle, so I know we've already been going for over an hour and 20 minutes. This was pieced together from 2 separate streams. That's why I'm posting it as a VOD. Sort of the intro part was all one stream. The second part was another, because I did play this battle 2 or 3 times just to kind of try and like figure a little bit more about it. There were a few things that happened I wanted to learn more about. But in any event, that's going to do it for this part of the episode. We will continue this fight in our next episode. Until next time, this is the Historical Gamer saying thank you very much for watching. And until next time, I'm out.